Good morning, eighth graders. I'd like to talk a little bit today about the closer look at the rubric. And this rubric is the TDA rubric. I'm going to jump over to pages that hold the rubric. And this is further in our long extended document that gives us what we call the sampler. And the sampler provides us with what we need to know when it's coming to how do they score my writing? Well, if you've spent a lot of time on the writing, getting a 4 means that you have effectively addressed all parts of the task, demonstrating in-depth analytic understanding of the text. Also indicates that you have effective introduction, development, and conclusion, identifying an opinion, a topic, a controlling idea related to the text. It also indicates strong organizational structure that effectively supports the focus and ideas, thorough analysis of explicit and implicit meaning from texts, and effectively supporting your claim, your opinion, your ideas, or any inferences that you may have. It has substantial, accurate, and direct references to the text. And this is where you are constantly reminded a text-dependent analysis is a TDA, and that means you have to go back to the text, use it to support what you're trying to say. And so you might even have substantial, accurate, and direct references to the text, which uses relevant key details. And so that would include quotes, facts, definitions. You should have substantial reference to the main idea, whatever you're being asked to put forth from the prompt, and relevant key details of the text to support the writer's purpose. There should be skillful use of transitions to linked ideas. There should even be effective use of precise language and domain-specific vocabulary drawn from the text to help explain the topic and to convey experiences, events, and there shouldn't be very many errors, if any. And if they're present maybe in sentence formation, grammar usage, and they include the spelling, the capitalization, and the punctuation. But what's important about any mistake you might have in the writing is that the errors do not interfere with the meaning. Most of you would probably more likely score the 3. That means even though you did a nice job, you didn't meet everything, there's still adequate addressing of all parts of the task, demonstrating sufficient analytic understanding, a clear introduction, a development, and a conclusion that identifies an opinion, a topic, or controlling idea, an appropriate organizational structure that adequately supports the focus and ideas, a clear analysis of the explicit and implicit meaning of the text to support the claims, opinions, ideas, and inferences, sufficient and accurate and direct references to the text, using relevant details, examples, quotes, facts, and or definitions. And if you notice, that sounds an awful lot like a 4. And this is the key difference between the 3 and the 4, is that there could be some errors and they might interfere with some of the meaning. And there might be just a few more things that just aren't quite as perfect as a 4. Then we get down to the 2. This is where it inconsistently addresses some parts of the text. That means some parts are right, some parts are wrong. So there's partial analytic understanding. There's either a weak introduction or development, or the conclusion, which is identifying in the position, the topic, or the controlling idea. And it's somewhat related to text. There's a weak organizational structure. It's inconsistently supporting the ideas, or it's weak and inconsistent analysis, or of explicit or implicit meaning from text. It's vague references to the text, uses some details and examples and quotes, or a weak reference to the main ideas and relative details, and it's inconsistent use of transitions to link ideas, or inconsistent use of precise language and domain-specific vocabulary. And there could be quite a few more errors present in sentence formation, grammar usage, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and errors. And by the time we get down to a 1, we have a minimally addressed part of the task demonstrating an inadequate analysis. There's minimal evidence of introduction or development or conclusion, minimal evidence of any organizational structure, insufficient or no analysis of text, may or may not even support claims or opinions, ideas, and inferences, and insufficient reference to the text, using few details, examples, quotes, facts, and or definitions. Minimal reference to the main ideas or relevant details of the text, and few, if any, transitions to links and ideas, or little or no use of precise language. Many errors present in sentence formation, grammar, usage, and spelling. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of these samples, and we're going to work from the lowest to the highest. Okay. So this particular piece got a 3. And this particular piece got a 2. And this particular piece got a 1. And I'm going to go backwards when I do this, okay? All right, so let's take a look at this one right here. It's a minimal response. So if you notice, this kid got a 1, and here's why. He wrote, the role in nature is that you got to let stuff free her from evidence that shows that. He longed for one draught of flight to quench the thirst of his captivity. He stretched out his arms to the sky and made toward the highest heavens. Her, from other evidence of letting nature free, at length watching the seagulls in the air, the only creatures that were sure of liberty, he thought of a plan for himself and his young son Letherus, who was captive with him. There I showed you where I got evidence of you got to let nature free. Now, what's the problem is that nature often has a role in many myths. Write an essay analyzing the role of nature in both the passage and the poem. So there needs to be evidence from both the passage and the poem. And you can see that this person wrote 2 paragraphs about it. It can only be assigned 1 point. As we get to a little stronger essay, we get this one, which goes for about 1.5 pages, and it's still scored 2. Nature is used in both the passage and poem, and in his essay, I will analyze the role of nature in both the passage and the poem, also showing evidence first. I'll analyze the role of nature in the passage, and in the passage, inventor used the seagulls he seen from his tower as in preparation for his new invention, wings. Okay, that's a confusing thesis. Not sure what the kids, what is going to happen here. The inventor made the wings from the wax and the feathers from the seagulls, crowned his tower. The inventor also used the seagulls as an example of how to fly his new invention. And the sun was also an important natural factor in the passage, as if the inventor's wings got too close to it, the wings would fall apart. And now those were the roles of nature in the passage. Next is nature's role in the poem. Now nature seems to have less of a role in the poem than the passage, but with the less, he is still there. And the poem Icarus starts with the Icarus falling. And that is where nature's role comes in because of the sun melting, the wax on his man-made wings. These are nature's roles in both the passage and the poem, with the passage's main nature role being the seagulls and the poems being the sun. Now, what's different about what the 2 passages I just read and why the one gets a 1 and this one gets a 2 is because this student did try or make an attempt to create a thesis and also to compare both the passage and the poem. And that's all I'd like to talk about today. Next week, we'll talk about high-end responses for a comparison writing for the TDA. And this is the grade 8 language arts sampler. And this particular notice that you guys have here is one of the complexities to what we call the text-dependent analysis. It takes time to write a good one. It takes time to score up so that it is going to come back to you with a score that is fair and decent. But keep in mind, if you only write 3 or 2 paragraphs and you don't address the prompt, the highest score that they can give you is a 1. If you make an attempt to talk about the prompt and do a comparison as it asked, and you pull some text evidence and you tell a reasonable analysis of attempting, you might get the 2. Next week, we'll talk a little further about an extensive or more complex TDA and scoring the 3 or the 4.